it on the. Look at that.
Why don't we go ahead and call the Executive Committee meeting for Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission for December the 3rd, 2025 to order. And first on the agenda is the roll call.
Jackson Bogan. Jackson Bogan. Larry Leverins.
Here.
Diana Looper.
Here.
Tom Murtaugh. Tom Murtaugh. Kathy Parker.
Here.
Jerry Reynolds.
Here.
Gary Schroeder.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you, Eric. Next is the approval minutes, Jerry.
I move to approve the minutes from November 5th, 2025 public hearing as submitted.
I second it.
So a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. New business, Jerry.
I move to hear and vote on resolution PD 25-16.
I second it.
Staff, please.
Hello, Amanda Esposito, APC staff. So this is final detailed plans for a plan development. This is construction plans only. They will final plat this one a little bit later. So this is for the McCarty Hope Apartments. This was approved in August by APC, and then Lafayette City Council approved the rezone in September. So this is on the south side of McCarty, just behind where the marketplace is on 52, or on 38, I mean. Currently unimproved. There's a bit of the site plan here for you. They have an easement to use the road from McCarty back to their property, where they are planning 2 multifamily rental apartments of single level only. They have an envelope shown on the eastern side of the site as a proposed future expansion in case they are able to do so, but the first phase will include the one that's on the western side. So they'll have up to 54 units between those two buildings, along with a clubhouse. They have a pavilion and a dog park. So as I said, this is construction plans only. They meet all the required conditions at this stage of development. So if these are approved and recorded, they will be allowed to begin clearing, grading, and infrastructure work only, no vertical work until the final plat has been approved and recorded. We are still also working on the bonding with the city. So we are recommending approval of this resolution.
Very good. Thank you, Amanda. Petitioner or their representative? Is there anyone here to represent this case? Anyone here know about this case?
I could speak. I could speak a little bit on it. Yeah, it's went through Lafayette City Council, and this has been worked on for some time. And it, as many of you may or may not know, it sets where our new facilities are off of McCarty Lane, and that's the entrance to where we go into the garages and our salt huts out there. And so, yeah, city is behind this. Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Jerry. Procedurally, do we need a petitioner to approve the PD?
You do not.
Okay, very good. Anyone from the audience wishes to speak to this? Questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot. Thank you.
Unanimous ballot for approval.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Now that we enter our public hearing portion of the meeting, I have a statement I wish to read. Let's see, here they are. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedure, the Commission would like for you to know the following. When we hear requests to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawings showing the division into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make a comment or provide us with information regarding any subdivision petition will be given an opportunity to do so. We are a 7-member body, and a majority of 7 is 4. Regardless how many commissioners are actually present, at least 4 votes in favor or 4 votes against are required for action to be official. If fewer than 4 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, the case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes, and we ask that you not repeat what others before you have already said. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before doing so. All exhibits presented to the commission become property of the commission. Jerry.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, Unified Subdivision Ordinance, Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application, and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the application to be heard this evening, and a response from the checkpoint agencies, and all response from the checkpoint.
I second it.
So I have motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move to hear and vote on S 5306 MJ Fields minor subdivision.
I second it.
Kathy, and let the record show that Mr. Bogan has arrived.
The acreage on this is actually 4.356 acres, so the agenda is not correct. It was advertised with the correct acreage, though, so we're good. All right, petitioner's property is located on the south side of State Road 225, just north of Battleground. Property is zoned R1, single-family residential. Oh, there's just a little sliver of floodplain up in the northeast corner of the property as well. Here's a look at the aerial and a closer look. And here's a look at the sketch plan. Not a whole lot to this. NDOT was concerned about a second driveway in this area for the 11 acres left over. So to get around that, they have revised the sketch plan to show an easement right here. So the 11-acre tract will access the same driveway as the house on the lot.
Does that mean that, does that lot go to the back?
I'm sorry?
That driveway then goes around the house then?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, so the 11-acre remainder is kind of an L-shaped property here.
Mm-hmm.
So this property would access the same point on 225 and then
Okay.
do this. Does that make sense? Okay. There are 4 conditions, all of them standard. We are recommending conditional primary approval.
Very good, thank you. Petitioner or their representative? Todd?
Todd Starr, Starr Associates, 215 Alabama Street, Lafayette, Indiana, 47901. I did a good job explaining the project. The reason why they gave us 3 options for access, either design a new access to the west, provide an easement through the property. So we chose the path of least resistance using the existing drive and the easement. Now, if someone wants to build in the back, they'd have to extend and clear out some trees, but topographic wise, they could put a drive to the back. So we did have to increase the size mainly because when the health department at our little sketch plan hearing provide us an updated sketch of the septic, and I guess the client didn't realize how far back the septic went. So we had to increase the size to the south so that we would be able to keep the septic on the property. So that's why it increased a little bit of size when we did the updated site plan. So if you have any questions on the answer.
Yeah, I was just, it doesn't, that was my great uncle's property. He owned that for years, and that's why I was wondering, very familiar with it. And because we used to farm the bottom part, but as that hill goes down, so that septic is, they're going to use the same septic, or they?
No, they'd have to get soil borings done for that area. The key is that the people that own it right now, he's like, I'm getting older in age, I'm getting tired of mowing it, and the family has showed interest in maintaining the back part, and maybe someone would build, or at least have a place to maybe hunt or fish or use it. And so he's like, I don't know if we'll ever sell our house, if a family member would buy it, but we want to make sure that if we decide we want to sell it and nobody in the family wants to buy it, that it would protect the back area with access. And if someone wants to use it for recreation or build a house, the family and the generations after them could still use the property in the back.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this? Questions or comments from the commission? Yeah. We have a white ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Jerry?
Pardon me, I lost track here. I move to hear and vote on S 5308 Nelson Minor Subdivision Minor Sketch.
And we have a second for that? Second. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. We're good. Kathy?
Petitioner's property is located on the north side of County Road 600 North. It's 2.4 acres in size. Came out of a 160-acre parent tract, but it wasn't subdivided or parcelized. So this will actually take care of that. It is zoned AA. Not a whole lot out there. Here's a closer look at the property. The purpose of the subdivision is basically to separate the house from these storage buildings over here. Petitioner has no plans to build a house. He just wants to use those barns for his personal storage. And here's a look at the subdivision, the sketch plan. There was a question about this garage being within the right-of-way. It's not. The subdivision variance was filed and then withdrawn before it was heard. So there needs to be 40 feet from the center line of the county road to the garage, and there is 40 feet, free and clear. So we're good. And county highway is good. So there are 5 conditions of approval, all of them standard. We are recommending conditional primary approval.
Very good. Thank you. Petitioner or the representative?
My name is Robert Grove, 3421 Ingram Court, Lafayette. We don't have any issues with the staff report. We agree. The only thing is we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Anyone else from the audience wish to comment on this? Oh, we have a commenter. We may have some questions for you later, Robert.
No questions. Mandy Westerfield, representative for Greg Suter, representing him today. So pretty straightforward and also happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Any other comments from the audience? Comments from the commission? Hearing none, we have a white ballot.
And we have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Very good, thank you, Ryan. Jerry?
Move to hear and vote on S 5311, Purdue
Thanks.
Technology Center, Aerospace, Rolls-Royce, minor subdivision, minor sketch.
I second it.
Stan. Kathy?
Okay, petitioner's property is located at the southwest corner of US 231 and State Street. So it's the Rolls-Royce building that we're all familiar with. Purpose of the subdivision is to separate the Rolls-Royce building from the solar panel farm to the south. Well, it looks like they updated the zoning map and it's now showing the floodplain. But the building is zoned OR, Office Research. Here's a look at the aerial. You can see Purdue's airport to the south. And a closer look at the property. So again, not a whole lot to this one. This is the new lot line, would be right through here. There are 4 conditions of approval, all of them standard. We are recommending conditional primary approval.
Very good, thank you. Petitioner or their representative?
Good afternoon, Nathan Winslow with American Structure Point, offices at 9025 River Road, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240. Thank you for that introduction on the project. Yeah, pretty straightforward, really just looking to use this as an opportunity to clean up some of the property lines and establish really what's currently been constructed, which is the Rolls-Royce building, separating that from the remainder of the property. Todd's Creek is effectively the delineation between the 2 parcels there. It's a very natural boundary line, and ultimately just looking to clean this up. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak to this? Questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, we have a white ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Very good, thank you, Ryan. Jerry?
I move the following subdivision petition be placed on December 17th, 2025 Area Plan Commission public hearing agenda at petitioner's request. Placement thereon being without reference to compliance and noncompliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance S 5314 Park 350 subdivision Phase 2 minor sketch.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Jerry?
I move the following rezone petitions be placed on December 17th, 2025 Area Plan Commission public hearing agenda. Z 3013 WW Schroeder Land Trust R1 to GB. Z 3014 Thomas Developers LLC R3W to R4W. And Z 3015 Thomas Developers LLC R3W to R4W.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Jerry?
I move we approve the November 2025 budget report as submitted.
Second?
Happy to answer any questions. Closing of the year. Also, Diana wasn't able to vote on that last one there. She stepped away, but we went ahead and processed it anyway, so just wanted to acknowledge that.
We had enough balance, okay? Any questions for Ryan? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Any other business?
I have none.
I think take that last motion, Jerry.
I move to adjourn.
So we're adjourned. And we will start the ordinance committee here shortly. Everybody ready to go? I will go ahead and call to order the Area Planning Commission of Tippecanoe County, the Ordinance and Bylaw Committee for December the 3rd, 2025. First on the agenda is approval from the minutes from the October 1st, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Second, updating lot percentages and select zones.
Okay, some of you might remember Tom Murtaugh requested we take a look at building coverage percentage in our ordinance and change it. I think it was maybe a month or two ago. So we did. And basically, what we're looking at is the maximum building cover percentage. And I just kind of put this together. This is how we measure building coverage. So we calculate the size of the ground floor of a house, any detached garage or shed, anything with a roof basically is included in the calculation. Also, we look at vegetative cover, which is the amount of green space a property has. So for vegetative cover, we calculate the same thing, the building cover, and then we add sidewalks, patios, driveways, and then subtract that from the lot area to get the green space, if that makes sense. So here's the existing standards in our zoning ordinance. Up at the top is the R1 zone. 10,000 square feet is the lot size minimum. 75-foot lot width. And currently, building cover, the maximum permitted is 30%. So that very last column shows the maximum size house you can build on the smallest lot in that zone. Okay, so 30% of 10,000 is 3,000. Does that make sense to everyone?
Just the ground floor square footage.
Just the ground floor is included in that calculation, right. I think anecdotally, we've been seeing more single-story buildings, houses, which naturally would be larger than a two-story house with just calculating the first floor. So we are recommending a 5% increase in the building cover maximum for R1, R1A, and R1B. That would allow a house size of 3,500 square feet in R1. So this is sort of what AO's discussed, and this is the recommendation we've come up with. So be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a driver of this, Kathy? Meaning, are we seeing more people? Is there a driver of this? Are we seeing more people?
I think the reason Tom brought it up was because of Millbrook. Yeah, the Estridge project. I think it's called Millbrook. They requested a rezoning to R3 instead of R1.
Gotcha.
Remember that? So R3 zoning with a commitment that they would only build single family so that they could build 4,000 square foot houses.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
that wouldn't solve their problem, right?
Well, that's my question.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Does this solve their problem?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think we decided 4,000 square feet with a minimum 10,000 square foot lot is pretty massive. So we chose to go kind of halfway.
So currently, they went to R3.
That's how they got around that issue, instead of getting variances for a whole subdivision.
So what R3, so what does that allow them to build? It says R3 with R1 lot, they could do a 4,000. 4,000, okay.
And that's still an option. They haven't taken that off the table.
I have another question, because there's something going to the next meeting, and would this change have saved them? Or they'd still be in the same boat?
They would still be in the same boat
So-
because their house is 6,300 square feet on a 15,000 square foot lot. So it's massive.
So the proposal, okay. So I look down at the bottom, you don't have R3 with the R1 lot. On the second one, staff are
Right,
proposing.
because we're not proposing any change to R3. Now, the R3 with R1 lots, that's still a possibility. We haven't taken that, away. I just didn't add it to the bottom. It's no change.
So that's not a substitution, that's just addition.
Okay, so
So that would be added to the bottom?
Is there a reason, Kathy, that the percentages for the maximum building coverage are not the same? I mean, why, when your lot gets bigger, can you not build a house that's 40% the size of it, whereas?
Typically, the smaller lots, smaller like R1B, R1C, R1U developments, smaller lots, smaller houses, but it's more dense than an R1 subdivision would be, which is typically more suburban in style, more of a yard. I don't know if you guys want to add anything, but.
I guess one of the comments earlier that was made was that that's a lot of house to put on that size of lot. And percentage-wise, if I were looking at postage stamps, right, it would, from an aerial view, it would be about the same, 40% of 10, 40% of...
Yeah, I think the difference is really urban and suburban.
Yeah, that's the main thing. That's the only thing I have to add is, the whole point of the suburban zones is to create these kind of bucolic, more open spaces, bigger yards, bigger setbacks, just more green space, more separation between houses, and kind of codify that in law to kind of force that separation, so to create that space between the houses. As opposed to a denser environment. So, but yeah, certainly that R3 zone is available if someone wanted to trigger it, and just build single-family homes like that. The Blackthorn subdivision is one that comes to mind, although I don't think they necessarily exploited everything they could with that.
Can you explain the R3 with R1 lots? Is that a commitment?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's exactly what Estridge did, right?
Yeah, so the R3 zone allows single-family, two-family, and multifamily buildings by right. So they looked at that and saw 40%, and that's what fit their product, what they build. So they chose to rezone to R3 with a commitment that they would only build single-family.
have we talked to the builders about this? Do they have any input? Did they?
We have not.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear what I like the approach, but I'd be interested to see what they thought, if that's,
Sure.
it seems to be the trend.
I can tell you that I didn't go through the BZA database line by line, but most lot coverage variances we hear are like 31, 32, 33%, and they would be fine. They wouldn't need a variance under this, so.
Is this something we have to move on to?
No. No.
Well, I mean, the case history we do have would support this, I think. Well, yeah. So would you like to table this?
I think so. I'd just like to get their input,
Sure.
see if they're thinking something, so we can try to get it right, get it close to right the first time.
It might also be good when Tom's back, because this was his idea to begin with, so.
So, 40%. So I'm going to ask the question again, because I'm not sure I understood the answer, but for
Sure.
Millbrook, that did the R3 with commitments,
To only build R1, single-family homes.
okay, but what would be, their lot coverage would be building coverage maximum 40%, green space 30%.
Correct.
So
So they could build 4,000 square foot houses.
we're not
with that.
quite there yet.
Right.
We're at 35 and 35, another,
We went halfway.
yeah,
Yeah.
went half, okay.
If it was, when we come back and revisit, let's say that just for sake of discussion, we wanted them all to be 40%. I'm just making stuff up. Then you'd just remove the R3 with R1 lots? It no longer would be needed?
Yeah, I put that in there just because that
an
was
example
used
of-
once
got it.
before. Yeah, it's not in the ordinance. like-
Okay, that's what thank you.
Right.
That's
Right. It's the only difference between R3 and R1. If you look, lot size the same, lot width the same, building coverage and vegetative cover, that's the only difference.
Yeah, 40, 30,
Yeah.
35, 35, okay. Yeah, I think it's a move, but like you say, I'd like to hear Tom's input, plus what the builders are thinking, what they think, see their demand coming.
Okay?
Millbrook kind of opened the thought process, I think,
Yeah.
so. And I've seen their projects, and they look nice. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not sure, but if you go in, was it Westport? Is that a PD?
That was a PD.
Yeah, but, okay, you're familiar with that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a nice subdivision with some
Yeah.
nice large houses and yards are not very big, but it works
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I think people like that. So the question is, do you have to do a PD for that, or can you do it by
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Okay.
So you want to make a motion to continue to January, or?
Microphone, and then that, and maybe.
Sorry, first meeting.
Go ahead. And then get the feedback from the builders. I'd like to see what their thought is, too.
Yeah, I move to table the updating lot coverage percentage in select zones until the January meeting to allow time to get feedback from the builders and others' comments.
Very good. I think it's good, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so
Well, wait a
second.
minute, I was going to suggest February, not because dragging it out, but there's a lot that goes on this month, and will people really be in tune to what's going on when it comes to having the builder feedback? Not that I'm trying to just push it out there. I just
Yeah,
feel
there's no
like,
rush.
there's no rush. I amend my motion from January to February.
So we have a motion, and a second, to push us off till February and get more feedback from the builders and whoever else has an interest. Any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Next, updating the height requirements for in R3W.
Okay, in Tippecanoe County, height of a building is measured from the ground to the peak of the tallest roof. I mean, that makes sense. Except in multifamily zones in West Lafayette. They have a different height requirement.
Of course we did.
And it's actually measured from the ground to the finished floor, not roof, finished floor of the uppermost story. Does that make sense? It's kind of confusing. So for example, the standard is 14 feet. That's the limit. And if you picture a 3-story building, the third floor, the floor, not the ceiling, but the floor would be 14 feet above the ground, only if the first floor is half buried. Okay? And you've seen these apartment buildings in West Lafayette. They're pretty common from back in the 60s and 70s. Half the ground floor is buried, and then the second and third floor are above. That meets that 14-foot limit. Times have changed, and we get a lot of variances for height in those 2 zones in West Lafayette. We also see a whole lot of planned developments. Another way to get around that regulation, just do a PD. So the West Lafayette staff wanted us to change that. They just want to be measured the same way as everyone else measures height. And I don't blame them for wanting to do that. So right now, Lafayette has a 35-foot lot height limit in the R3 zones. West Lafayette wants to go to 40 feet, which I think makes sense. I did go through the BZA database, and it's on the screen right now. The grade-in lines are not resident, or they're not R3W or R4W, but all the others are. Just to sort of get a taste of, what people have been requesting. So 7 out of 11 of the above variances would not have been needed if we changed it to 40 feet. So I think that's a pretty good, looks good. So I think Chad's here tonight. I don't know if he's planning on speaking.
He says not, but.
He said no?
We'll see.
But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does Lafayette have an appetite to go to 40, so we have one standard? No. They do not.
We asked. They are happy with 35. They don't want to change that. So.
Okay. Answers that question. Maybe Jerry can comment on this. It seems like back in the 60s and 70s, that was probably due to fire protection, just getting.
I think you're right.
And I think that's all changed now.
Yeah, they didn't have ladder trucks and the equipment we got today.
40 makes sense. Any other questions? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this? Don't go away yet, Kathy. So, any other comments from Commission? I just remember we had something that was proposed on West Lafayette. Maybe it was height that was part of it, but it was also density.
Height and parking.
The density standard for.
Central Business District, I think is what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And it was denied.
How many units? Yeah. And I just wonder if that appetite has changed, because you end up building some units over there that are not very up to market what you would want today. Mm-hmm. They're small, and you're forcing people to.
I think times have changed since we did that. I think that was higher than 40 feet even. And it was the Central Business West Lafayette area near New Chauncey that, they thought that was way too tall for being that close to New Chauncey, and it was denied. So.
How about the density part of that? If you remember what I'm talking about there, you have all these A, B, C, D, size of the units, so many units per acre.
Right.
And in the past, it seems like you built a lot of units that did not utilize the land very well.
Yeah.
Pretty low density.
There is still that density cap in the R3W, and we've wanted for years to look at all of the R3 districts and sort of, fix what doesn't make sense. We haven't quite gotten around to finishing that, but we will definitely be looking at that in the future.
I didn't know if West Lafayette had more of an appetite today to look at that than they did. I understand the height, but the density standard is an issue. Thank you. Jerry?
I got a question, Kathy. So by raising that, will that affect the sprinkler laws that's going to make these? Because I remember years ago, Shoshone Drive, they went underground to build
Oh,
those
yeah.
sprinklers.
Jerry, can you turn your mic on?
Years ago, Shoshone Apartments went half underground to stop the sprinklers, and then we had an issue on 4th Street down here where they went up because they were higher, and they had to sprinkle even the second floor. Is this going to make a difference in?
Yeah,
to
that's
these
a really
buildings?
good question, and I'm going to call Chad up here because he knows
He's
building
on his
code.
way.
Okay.
He could read your mind.
Chad Spitznagel, all multifamily now is required to have a sprinkler system, so.
So they're all down?
Yeah, that's part of,
Okay.
that's part of the talking point on the 40 feet with our West Lafayette Fire too.
Okay.
And while I'm up here, sir, you go ahead. if you-
Isn't it anything over 2?
It's a 1 and 2 family, and townhomes
Yeah.
are not required.
Right.
But any multifamily, you're correct, isn't it? And then to your question on the R4, there has been some talking points on, there's always been some hesitation on going, to the no density cap in the R4 because it's just unlimited. And then it's like, if you rezone it to an R4 outside of that 15 units per acre, then it's like, what kind of project are we going to get? But I think an open discussion on what kind of limitations in an R4 makes sense. Is it 15 units per acre to 60 or something of that nature to where there's a by right project and then anything over needs to go to a PD? But I think that's a valid talking point in the future.
Okay, don't go away yet, but in Lafayette does not have a density standard. No, it does not. So,
I guess not.
so what dictates your density is height, ground coverage, parking, setback. So you have a density standard already without having that number. And it works in Lafayette, so.
But the 15 units per acre is ridiculously low when you look at the PDs that are going in over there, which are what, 60, 80, 100? I mean, yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You already have a restriction with the other regulations that you have. So, okay. Thank you, Chad. Any other questions, comments from the commission? So, what do we want to do with this? Do we have something in its ordinance form that you want to send forward?
It's a pretty easy fix. I can put it on the January APC meeting. I can bring you back the ordinance amendment form in January.
That'd be
if you
good.
wanna do
I think
that.
we could look at the final, if there's any other feedback
Yeah.
to tweak
Okay.
on that, but it looks pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. We'll
Okay.
just see that. Thank you. You updating the size limitation on 8, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do we need a motion on that or no?
I don't know. I don't think
No?
so.
Fair enough.
No, we're not. They're just going to bring it back, but thank you.
Nathan McBurnett, planner. I don't have a slide for this one. This is just going to be verbal. As you all remember, in March of this year, it seems a lot longer than this, we had ADUs legalized within the unincorporated county. Since that time, we've gotten a handful of requests about ADUs or inquiries about them. And basically, they're all kind of pointing in the same direction. People want larger ADUs than what we permit by the ordinance, or at least what we permit by right. So they're looking at variances. We're probably going to have at least one case on the January BZA agenda, looking at the size of an ADU. I think they're looking at something over 1,000 square feet. And so when we were originally thinking about ADUs, we were thinking about them for West Lafayette in a more dense urban environment where 750 square feet makes sense for a size limit on a small urban lot. Out in the county, given the kind of convoluted history of this amendment, we ended up with the same size limitation in the county. Whether it's appropriate for the county as opposed to an urban environment is kind of the point of discussion we wanted to pose to you all. Whether there's an appetite for increasing that size limitation out in the county to something higher, whether we want to make the size limit variable at all, or if we want to include that in the definition, or what the implications of having, a large, very large ADU that's basically the size of a primary dwelling. I think one person was looking at something, well, actually 2 individuals were looking at turning an existing home on a property into their ADU, and then proposing a larger structure that would then become the primary dwelling. And in those cases, the ADU, which is the existing structure, would then be over 1,000 square feet. So it's kind of not something that we really anticipated with this amendment, but just wanted to pose these questions to you. At the memo, we've got 3 questions at the end there. And just wanted to see what your thoughts were about whether this should be revisited or not.
Quick question, are ADUs the size of an ADU? Is that something that can be varied?
Yes,
So they can still get a variance, so that's an option they can do.
exactly.
Obviously, I get Tom's input, because did Lafayette adopt ADUs? I forget.
No,
They
the
did not. So-
unincorporated county was the
Okay, it's the
only.
only county, so.
Yep.
See what Vicky thinks, but I think it makes sense to make larger ones, and whether there's a cap or not, I don't know. You're still capped by coverage, lot coverage, setbacks, green space.
ADUs are actually exempt from a lot of those standards. Yeah. Which is part of the reason that they are is because we had that lower size cap.
Yeah, okay.
Does the size of the lot come into play at all?
The size of the lot,
Yeah, so if a house is sitting on 4 acres versus one that's sitting on 6/10 of an acre.
in terms of the size of the ADU that they could have, it doesn't currently, but that's something that we were thinking about, as it makes sense.
Sure.
That maybe it would, right?
I think that comes into play, more than anything, because farm families that are having 2-acre tract lots, that's much different than being in the city. In regards to your first question, I need to do a little bit more homework. I can say to see, my first thought is no, most banks won't do one a house with one lot with 2 houses. But I need to do some homework to see if that's changed. I don't think it has. So that's the other issue.
Is that because that's the way the law is right now, or?
It would be more about finding comparables that have sold within 6 months' time, so there's just not enough similarity out there to.
There's no comparables. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicki, because this is another reason why we're here, is kind of asking for advice as well as, in the industry, both banking, insurance, what would the ramifications of this if we had 2 homes of the same size on the same lot? How does that reflect in the industry, and so.
I don't know that the
I
banks
appreciate
necessarily
if there is
gets it,
homework
it's
that needs
just-
to be done, yeah.
Can that, we have a product that it can be done on, but I don't know that, I'm thinking outside of like a portfolio loan, if mortgage brokers and that will do
Yeah.
that nowadays, we're calling them mother-in-law suites. Back in the day, we did, or
Yeah,
some.
granny flats.
Yeah,
was- mhm.
so I would want to get more information
Sure,
on
no,
that.
we'd appreciate your homework there.
But not to open, well, it might open up a can of worms. Going back to the previous, very first point, not this one, but 30% lot coverage, what you mentioned was ADUs are not subject to that, so we could have somebody with a R3 to R1, or R3 with R1 on it, right? Like Estridge did. So that takes up 40% of the lot coverage, and then they can put a 750 square foot ADU on it as well?
No, currently, under the current language, they're only allowed in the ag zones. The A zones, and
Thank you,
RE.
thank you.
Yeah.
Can of worms closed.
Of course, a lot of subdivision HOAs would prohibit them generally as private agreements.
Do you have any idea how many of these exist now? I mean, I know there are properties out there with 2 houses on them.
Yeah.
And many more that have barns or sheds with a small apartment in it.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
flew in under the
yeah,
radar.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I know Lafayette probably has a lot of examples of these, like in the urban form, and in the county. Do you know, Kathy, anything about that?
No, I don't know, but we have, just over the past year, at least two that I can think of, subdivisions, minor subdivisions in Lafayette that had two houses, and they needed to divide the lot into two lots for mortgage purposes, so I know that's a thing.
Yeah, and they ended up getting, I think, variances from every zoning standard. So that was a headache. Yeah.
So what's your question to us, whether we should pursue that?
I think generally, yeah, whether the size limit should be increased. There are a few tweaks that need to be done to this amendment anyway, so there will probably be some form of amendment for that. But also, if you think the size should increase, what should it increase to?
And the industry for it? Are we creating something that can't be accomplished?
Well, it may be that, I think it's a short term. I mean, if there was a lot of them out there, then that they would solve their own problem because they'd have comparisons, but sometimes people may not need a mortgage to do that. So it'd still allow them to do that. They couldn't get a mortgage, maybe they couldn't do that yet, or do a different financing product, which I think you said you could do. You may get a loan from a more farm type loan instead of the standard.
I know a Rural King, yeah, Farm Credit, whatever they're called now, Rural First, they do, because they're promoting it heavily. Now, I don't know anything about their product. I just know that they're promoting being able to have a granny flat or whatever, and they'll do those kind of loans.
Yeah, so it's available in different sources. That's not an issue, I don't think, to consider. It's more, what do we want to do on coverage and size? I'd say, why don't we talk about it again? Hopefully when Tom's here, he may have some feedback from county folks.
Well, we could touch base in January and
Yeah.
continue on to February.
Yes.
Depending on where everyone is.
Yes, yes. Before we close, anybody in the audience want to speak to this? No, so I think we'll just, I think there's interest, at least on my part, to do that. Citizens' comments. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll take that last motion, Jerry, if we're done.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you. So BZA at 6 o'clock.
She didn't come to